Hey, everybody.
Hello there.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to SexyNerdScience, Season 4, Episode 5. There's nothing funny that got 405. What's that? What's that jingle
Head
for
down the 405.
No, the
Like
jingle.
a Scrubs theme song.
405. It's like a Scrubby Bubbles thing.
409.
Is that 409? Dang it.
It's like
4 episodes away. We'll get it.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a great show for you, as always, like we always do. We got a good friend of the podcast here to talk with us. But first, Josh, you want to plug some stuff?
Yes. All right. So SexyNerdScience is brought to you by Audible. Please go to our sexynerdscience.com/Audible link and try a 1-month free trial of Audible with a free audiobook. I'm now currently reading or listening to the sequel to the book I was reading before. It is another Bill Nye book, and it is called Doing Everything at Once by Bill Nye. So you guys should definitely check it out. Audible's awesome. I love listening to it. So, but yeah, I just want to share with you guys that for our Sexy Nerd of the Month, we didn't have one last week on the podcast. And it was someone that I knew from growing up. We worked together. We didn't go to the same high school, but we had a lot of really close friends. And I just would like to welcome Steven to the podcast here as our Sexy Nerd of the Month.
He's clapping. So, Steven, you want to go ahead and I guess kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you know Josh, and get into that real quick before we go ahead with our questions here?
Sure. So I met Josh through working at a restaurant, Carlos O'Kelly's, where I became a young chef at the age of 16, and alongside Josh here, who was a more senior chef than I. And
Age of like 17.
and had a lot of good times there. So since Carlos O'Kelly's, I went to school and then worked in LA for a little while doing some rocket science stuff, which we can talk about later. And then decided to leave that because I wanted to do a more startup-y thing. And bounced around from kind of one idea that kind of led to a niche. So started at one place where we thought was a niche, but wasn't really a niche. And then slowly got to kind of the pinhole that I'm at right now, which I'm much more comfortable with. So that's, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So what is your current title at your current position, and what company is it for?
It's CEO of Juke Inc. And the CEO is kind of irrelevant because it's hard. I mean, technically it's a corporation, but it's a corporation of just a couple of people. So yeah. It's not like it's not like what some people probably imagine it is.
So I saw you have 2 people on your website, at least you and Mike Moon, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So how many people do you have at your company?
So that's the part that's kind of hard to explain. The simplest way to put it is Michael and I are basically running the ship, and we've had some kind of interns and some like freelancers and things like that along the way to get specific things done. But right now, the way we're doing things is we don't really need anyone else right now because we've partnered with quite a few different Chinese manufacturers and dedicated engineering firms that all do a different piece of the puzzle, and we're all kind of working together. So I really only have to do the thing that I'm good at, and then not really worry about hiring other people to do the rest. So
well, that's good.
Yeah, we kind of got pretty lucky the past year or so. Well, lucky and skill because my girlfriend linked us with this other group, so that was pretty fortunate.
Speaking of linking up, what exactly does your company Juke do?
Okay, so currently we make stuff that no one's really seen, but we make drones, do interactive like games and such. And currently we are working towards licensing a couple applications to Chinese drone manufacturers. And basically the drone is controlled by either a remote control or an app. And essentially we've modified the original toy app and we've added it some more smart functions and features. And the current application we're licensing is a gesture control program where you can go like a this, and then the drone will move this way, and you can go like a this, and the drone will move that way, and you can go like this, and then it will take 4 pictures. So basically, we're kind of starting out simple with getting our foot in the door with a couple of manufacturers, and then slowly corrupt them into making more serious games, or allowing us to license them more serious games. But the Chinese toy companies are very conservative, especially about doing new things. They're more like copy what's working, and once someone's proved that it works, they'll copy it really quick. And so we're really pushing it by getting in where we're at right now to have them kind of try some new stuff. So
now, are you guys using image recognition software or like machine learning, or what kind of things are you doing to teach it gesture controls?
So we develop our own kind of image recognition stuff. And without getting kind of too technical, essentially we specialize in like image recognition stuff, but also tailoring that to specific applications so that they become we make high quality, very specific individual applications, all built off of kind of one unified system that we made ourselves.
Now, do you guys have, are you guys doing this with one specific like model of drone, or are you guys putting this into multiple types of drones?
So we haven't, how can I put this? We're literally right now in the process of choosing and confirming with a couple of different factories right now, and we're not 100% which ones are there. There's one guy that seems that we've been working with for a while that seems like that one's definitely going to be going through here very soon. And but in theory there should be a few different drones, and they'll all here I have a drone right here. Let me go grab it and I'll show you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so this is what kind of a typical toy drone looks like. So you can kind of imagine that there'll be some derivative that looks like this. There's a different kind of colored drones and this and that, but most of the factories here all make pretty similar drones. Some that the legs fold in, some of the legs don't, but a lot of them are kind of similar drones with different paint jobs to represent the different toy companies and toy factories. So like I said, I think there'll be probably 1 to 3 probably distinct shapes that will work with our application, but I can't confirm which ones and sure. what exactly they'll look like quite yet.
Yeah, of course. I just had that thought because I had actually received a drone from an office work party, and so we've recently gotten to playing around with drones as well. So But I just didn't know if it was going to be something that would be able to, be not necessarily added, but something that would be widely available or not.
A couple of the ones were pretty close to potentially getting some final agreement with our international in the toy brand sense. I mean, like most drone toy company brands, you probably don't just recognize them, but they are international. Some of them are international, and they appear in some stores and definitely on Amazon and those kind of things. So whichever ones we go with will definitely be internationally available.
Nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you said you went to, so after Carlos O'Kelly's, you went to UNO, right? And then you were in...
Oh, sorry.
No, so I didn't, it was UNO?
I did go to UNO, but technically, like, my degree is Lincoln. It's this kind of weird political thing.
So did you go to PKI?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the Peter Kiewit Institute is technically part of the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is in Omaha.
It's in Omaha. Yeah.
Just like an Omaha campus.
Just like
now.
Doane has its own Omaha campus at Omaha UNO. Like, I mean, it's what do they call that? Can't think of what it is when you have the university at a different location.
Not entirely sure.
It's like an on-site university or something. I don't know.
But so did you do engineering then for this?
Yeah.
So you said rocket science, and so I've got a physics degree from UNO, and
okay.
So we joke around about it on this podcast. In fact, our our t-shirts say, it's not rocket science. Okay, maybe just a little, because we have gotten into rocket science a few times in this podcast. So I remember I saw that on your Facebook. I was like, what? Steven became a rocket scientist. Were you doing CAN satellites there at UNO then, or what kind of programs were you doing in Omaha?
No, what kind of got me the ticket to the show was I had done not like the sats you're talking about, but I did a kind of a different project. I had kind of on my own volition and talked with one of the directors of the Peter Kiewit Institute at the time. We were just talking about, what would it take to get the PKI off the grid? And so I did like a little kind of a self-research study design thing to see like what we could do. And from that, I learned essentially like how solar and batteries work together under various conditions. And so that's what kind of got me in the door to do initially to do stuff for satellites, to do solar energy and battery system, not really design, but like analysis.
That's
and
undergrad was under. I was using high altitude balloons to measure efficiency of solar panels at varying altitudes.
Okay.
So basically found out, around the 12,000 meter range is when your solar panels that are that are focused towards ultraviolet absorption. That's the peak. That's where you want to have high altitude solar panels, at least within the atmosphere, to be able to get the most sun and the most power on them.
Okay.
But yeah, I used high altitude balloons. It sounds like you did rockets, and that's.
Well, the rocket part. I mean, the company I worked for, technically, we're all kind of considered. They say you're all rocket scientists, just simply because you don't. At least where I was, you don't do like one job. You take multiple projects. So some have to do with like satellites. Some could do with more the rocket side. And so, yeah. So, yeah. So anyways, yeah, the rocket side kind of was it was kind of a little bit of luck, kind of timing, and kind of me kind of pushing, a kind of a mix of a couple things. but essentially what happened there was I did some look into SpaceX to look at their electrical power system, basically, and to just do an analysis and put in a report about my findings to the company I work for, with the intention of sharing that information with the government so they can decide if the rockets are good to purchase or not, essentially. And so that was my main project, you could say, for the time I was there.
That sounds awesome.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a rocket scout for the U.S. government at some point. I mean,
yeah,
scouting SpaceX.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because I had the opportunity to watch a lot of the rocket launches, like from the little computer, like in the in like the movies where they have all the like 4 or 5 rows of computers and then the big screen and everyone's the commands. So I had to watch the details in the command center for the power system and such.
That's
So that was pretty cool. To be honest, that whole experience was pretty surreal. It was really awesome.
Do you still keep SpaceX and stuff like that, or
no? Because I wouldn't say I was like an adversarial kind of connection with SpaceX at the time, but it was. It would have been a little bit weird if I got too friendly. Let's just say that, because my intention was to be just like a neutral party, and so I didn't really build any like lasting relationships with the people there, because that really wasn't the nature of the.
But
that
on
really
the
wasn't the
personal
nature.
level, do you like keep up with like the rocket launches and the autonomous drone landings?
I followed it a little bit. I was really keen to find out how good they did the because at the time I was there, they hadn't got the landing again, and so the main thing that I kind of kept up with was the launches as they were progressing and getting more and more stable, and then finally kind of landing them in various spots, and then finally doing their final goal. So that was really cool to watch them succeed with that, because they all worked obviously really hard to get there.
Oh yeah, it's one of the topics that we talk about a lot here is SpaceX, and I mean with the Falcon 9 Heavy launching in just a couple days, it's really, I mean, I've been reading some things from Elon Musk. If we get this thing 100 meters away from the launch pad and it blows up, Elon Musk's like, that's a successful launch. Like that's all I care about. Like anything where it's off the ground and going, he's like, that's counting a success. He's like, do I think we're gonna, it's gonna go without a hitch and land and everything? Yeah, sure. Like I can't think that it's not going to do that. But he said he called it a butt clenching moment. Like he's just he's waiting for it to happen, and I think that's really awesome, because I think the idea of what SpaceX is trying to do to make rocket science cheaper, more affordable, things like that is a huge daunting task, and I like that Elon Musk kind of just he's the guy who's always doing those kind of things. It sounds like it inspired you to go out and so you said you started doing some more entrepreneurship in LA.
So that's kind of the weird thing. So I wouldn't say that SpaceX inspired me to do that. I would say that when I was young, I always kind of said to myself, especially through high school, was like, okay, if I can come up with what I think could be the next big thing, then I would definitely drop everything and find a way to make it. I just never had an idea. And essentially, when I began kind of working full-time out of the university and essentially kind of I saw the different tracks of my life, because the company I was with is a very very like help you, hold you till you retire, and you can stay with them forever if you'd like. Very kind of pretty much everyone that would want a job where they can just, it's the classic, like you start there and then you die there. Like that's like, which it's kind of the dream for a lot of people, especially a lot of engineers, for that kind of a really cool job. Yeah. So, for me, that wasn't necessarily ever really my path. I was like, I thought that could be my path if different conditions came up, but for me, I had essentially after I started working quite a bit, and I had all these really cool projects, and I was very happy with them. But I'm like, even if it was this awesome forever, would I kind of still felt like something was missing. I don't know how to explain it. Mostly, I just felt like it was almost like that SpaceX project almost was. It almost felt like that was almost the biggest impact I could have ever made, and I had just kind of made it. And even for me at that time, I didn't really feel like.
You felt it was like downhill from there?
No, it's more like even that pinnacle didn't really make me feel like I made a difference. In the sense that I didn't really feel, like I said, more like that. I didn't really feel like I was making a difference. Even though I genuinely was making some kind of a difference, I just didn't feel that way. You would think
it just wasn't for you.
Yeah, it was, in the sense that I was probably the right person for the job at that time. And I would say I successfully completed that in a way that was probably good. But it just, in my heart was kind of still kind of thinking about this other idea of startup life. And then I kind of had been doing a lot of research in my off time when I was outside of work about entrepreneurship and startups, and and I had some ideas for myself. In fact, I'll try to be quick because I tend to be long-winded. But in fact, while I was doing that project at home, I had began doing some very basic ideas similar to Google Glass before a little bit before Google Glass came out. And then I also was thinking a little bit about starting to play with a Pokemon Go style app, almost exactly like Pokemon Go. And I had kind of started getting all the kind of groundwork of okay, what would I need to do if I wanted to make this? And I thought to myself, if I did all of this work, this is like a $30 million app. I kind of put a number on it. I was pretty convinced this is like a $30 million app. And that's if everything worked out. I got all the partnerships somehow by a miracle. I was able to do all the tech to get the demo ready while I was still working. And I kind of mapped it. I'm the best case scenario is like a $30 million company. And the irony is I ended up deciding to not go that route. And the irony is I think that Niantic got bought by Google for almost exactly $30 million. So that was really weird. That was some of those things that happen kind of really, for me, kind of validate the steps I've taken, even though that they seem kind of odd. But so because of that, I was I don't really want to go that route. I called a buddy of mine that I had done some research with at University of Pennsylvania, which I did some research there during the summer while I was at the university. And I knew he was at Stanford and he was really into the startup culture. I could tell from his Facebook posts. And so I was just hey, do you know anyone interested in startups or know anything or do you have any ideas or whatever? Because essentially after I decided I'm not going to do my project, and I did a lot of research, I realized you can still join a startup and make a difference if someone else has a good idea that you also agree with, and then you can put in your whole effort there and join up and be like a team at the ground floor. Sorry, I kind of skipped that part. And basically, once I kind of let my ego go of I need to do it all, that's kind of when I had the revelation of, okay, I'll just call my buddy who's in the startup world and see if there's any cool projects. He had told me about an idea he'd been working on for the past couple of years, and he sold me on it pretty good. And so like a couple of weeks later, I just quit and then moved to San Francisco, essentially.
That leap of faith that you had to take, like, was it scary? Like, what was going through your mind when you like quit like a job that was like, a 9-to-5 type of job to, starting your own thing?
I think it's part my personality and part conditioning. So at the time while I was working in LA, I was training martial arts for like 20 hours a week. So I was doing like so many different martial arts for like 20 hours a week. And that was, I think, something that really helped me stay clear-headed and not let any kind of emotion or something and like fear and these kind of things affect what I think would be the real authentic choice for the path for me. And I think that possibly had a little bit. I think knowing my personality, I probably would have done that even if I wasn't training, but I think that certainly that training definitely made it easier. So to be honest, I didn't even give it a second thought. For me, I really trust my gut because that's what had gotten me that far. And so for me, when I feel like my gut's telling me that I'm meant to do something else, I just trust it. And so for me, all I needed to hear was my buddy was down. And for me, that was good enough. And I had already thought about, it doesn't matter the consequences of what happens in the next couple of months or anything. Once I begin this journey, I'm going to see it through. That was kind of my mentality. And I would say I was kind of more excited for it than anything. The only thing is that my boss at the time is a really, really good guy and worked really hard to get me in there. And the only thing I felt a little bit bad that, they had invested in me, and also the people there had invested a lot in me in the sense of mentoring and stuff. And I made a lot of good friendships there. And so that was tough, but ultimately it comes down to like, I know they love me and they would support me to do whatever I felt like was the right thing for me. So like I said, part of me felt that for a little bit, but
I had a job where I was working on trailer hitches, designing those, and I worked with my aunt from my mom's side. Tons of people that I became friends with over the time I was there, and my boss, he was a great guy, and it's the same type of feeling when they helped you get to a certain point, or they put their faith in you or put time and energy into you, and then you have to say, oh, I'm going on to something bigger and better, leaving you guys behind, but thank you for what you guys had, already gave me. They want the best for you, especially my aunt, especially, my friends. But at the same time, they're like, well, now what are we going to do?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I definitely get that. But real quick, I wanted to touch on your time in California. I've been to Nebraska plenty of times. Obviously, Josh and Drew are from Nebraska. How did you go? Like, how would it feel like going to California? Like, was it like a big change for you? Was it a big, big city, like sticker shock kind of thing?
Not even in the slightest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not even in the slightest. I couldn't have had a better, like I said, I couldn't have had a better company. Like if I was going to work for anyone, like I can't imagine a better group and a better welcome and these kind of things. Like they really, really took care of me. They had me shacking up with one of the like older gentlemen that live there that has a house in LA nearby the office, and just his kids already moved out, so it's basically like an Airbnb kind of situation that I could just kind of literally just go there, move in, and figure out what I want to do next. So pretty much every single step was really, really easy. I just went from there, lived there till I saved up and thought about what my next steps would be. Then I found a really, really sick apartment right by the beach, like 7 minutes drive from my office. And so it was pretty much the best thing ever. I literally was living the dream. And that's why I was kind of saying it's really strange. You know, every single thing was everything I had imagined. You know, I was training at Bruce Lee's old school. I was like 7 minutes from the ocean. I could ride my longboard and then go in my wetsuit and just jump in the water and then skateboard back, and then, you know, drive to work. It was literally the coolest thing ever. But yeah, so no, it was dope. It wasn't a culture shock at all. I had a couple buddies that lived there, one of which had already started moving. So I had one good friend that was already still in the area that I grew up with. And so that made things also pretty easy. It was like every other weekend I could just drive down to see him. And so for me, like I said, everyone was very welcoming at the office. I made friends very quickly. All the housing options were there for me for whatever price range I could afford.
Nice.
Food was awesome. It was, to be honest, I lived in a place called El Segundo, which is, for me, it felt like a small town in a big city, you know, even though it was right between a couple bigger surf spots. It's just like this kind of mini, kind of small town that for me, it was really chill.
Right.
I think I just literally packed up my car and just drove there in a couple, like I just drove myself in like 2 days. And
That's
then,
so, forgive me, your 10-year high school reunion's coming up here this year, isn't it?
yeah.
So as someone, I had my 10-year high school reunion, and I'm going to be honest, Steven, like I'm taken back by, you know, seeing you in high school, seeing how things have gone from then to the person you are now. With AT&T, I work a lot with small business customers and business customers, and you've got the mindset of a CEO. Like I hear it when you talk. I hear how you're just, you know, inspired for something greater. And, you know, as someone who studies those kind of behaviors, like that's not something that just everybody has. And it's awe-inspiring to know that, you know, I got to work with you. I got to, you know, be friends with you when we were younger. And, you know, it's good to see someone from Bellevue make this kind of, you know, change in their life. And, you know, now you're staying in China like it's no big deal, and coming to us from across, you know, halfway across the world, being on a podcast.
I think this is our farthest interview at this point.
Nice.
For sure. And our first CEO too. Like, I mean, that's something that, I mean, there's questions that we
did have Iggy. Technically, he was a CEO as well.
True. Yeah, you're right. Iggy has the same qualities too. Like, don't get me wrong. By the way, Iggy is one of our previous Sexy Nerds of the Month. He owned a nerd blog called Project Nerd, who we were syndicated on as a podcast for a long time. Really good friend of the podcast.
Cool.
But it's just very interesting to see how life has worked out for you, and it's inspirational to me. I mean, I've always had idea, you know, this podcast, you know, wasn't necessarily like just like I'm destined to be in a podcast, but it was something that Drew and I were, you know, after going to a Comic-Con, we're like, hey, we should do this podcast, we should make it something big, you know. And like our the sky's the limit for a podcast, but
Yeah.
something that even though we're in a basement in Omaha, like, and one of us is in Detroit, I mean, there's some awesome things that come with it. And I just, it's part of the reason why when we were thinking about who we wanted to make the Sexy Nerd of the Month, I was like, hey, I've got this friend that, is doing really well. Like, I'd love to have him on the podcast. And I'm really glad that you shared with us just kind of, what got you started, your motivation, constant drive. Is there any advice that you would give, maybe someone listening to this podcast that's thinking about starting their own company, whether it's a tech startup or, some other business? Any advice that you could give to them?
So much. I think the biggest thing is finding a way to make the cheapest, simplest prototype that shows what you're trying to do and is somehow marketable as quickly as possible. Or at least demoable so you can try it out with people and find out all the knick-knack potential problems. But that's easier said than done, because I was a cocky prick, and everyone's a cocky prick when they first start, and they're convinced that their first idea is God.
Their shit don't stink.
That 100%, as long as they just make the exact thing to the perfection they're thinking of, it will certainly win. And the problem is you'll never get there. And it's something I was discussing earlier with someone else, is that I think this is applicable to more than just making a product. It's just especially like entrepreneurs that want to start something, is they probably have a personality where the first kind of steps seem like they come easy. So they think that the final step is only this far away, but they don't realize that to go from like above average to the tip of the spear, there's so many levels in between that you don't really see, that that you can't jump. You need to take every baby step. And I think one big problem with people like me, at least when I first started, and others trying to accomplish any kind of big goal, whether it be podcasting or whatever, the people that end up succeeding take baby steps and appreciate the wins from each of those baby steps. And that gives them the boost they need to keep going to the next step. And the problem is if you're too cocky and you don't, and you look at someone else's kind of couple steps in and you say, that's not, how are they satisfied with that? They should be getting to the next step. They don't realize that you need to get to that step before you can even go further. You can't skip that step. So of course they should be happy that they've already achieved that. So that was kind of cryptic, but it kind of applies to a broad spectrum of things more than just entrepreneurship, I think is.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think it even applies to us here. I mean,
yeah,
we've taken some baby steps and wanted to jump to another step and had to go, okay, well, where would that actually get us? And so I mean, do you think it's applicable, like you said, to more than just, the entrepreneur who's doing a startup in a company?
Right.
So
I think that's advice for life. Like, you keep moving forward and stay humble. I mean, that's kind of the things that, if I were listening to that's what I'm taking away from it is, know your direction and keep going. But I mean, just, appreciate everything that got you there.
Right.
As you get, I mean, and life has probably been all but humbling for Steven. And I mean, he says he was a cocky prick, and I'm going to throw this out there. Don't take it. Steven had a hip hop album that I have the CD cover at home for, and my girlfriend saw it the other day. and it was like, who's this dude in a vest against this?
We need some audio, Josh.
Oh my gosh! And like,
play cut if you're gonna play anything. That's the only one that's even slightly okay.
I honestly, like, every time I get a new haircut, I'm just like, I spent all my money on a new haircut, and I was just like, oh my God. But in the album cover, like, if for those of you listening, if you've ever seen like the oh man, have you ever seen like the Nellyville album cover? It almost looks exactly like that, except it had to have been shot like somewhere. I mean, was that a fake brick wall or?
That was a real brick wall, but fake graffiti.
Wait. Do it right?
Yes.
It's on Amazon.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course, dog. I don't play. I always make sure I get it to I get it to the end zone. But you know, the thing is, it's funny because like I said, that I'll go till I realize that why this is the path for me, and what I would need to do if I wanted to keep going. And so for me, it was just simply the songs I was writing just didn't mean anything to me. You know, my intentions were all wrong. I was like, okay, well, I can write okay. I think I could write a hit, you know. It didn't matter. It didn't mean anything to me, you know what I mean? And what I realized is it's a grind. Anything you want to get really good at or get to the top of, it's a grind. Like, you have to appreciate every step. And like me, I really didn't appreciate singing like 80 or 90% of my songs. I didn't give a shit about them. So there's no way I would have continued unless I had made music that I cared about. And
the thing I love about it is like, but you did it. Like, that's
I did it. Yeah, I made sure I did it.
How many times, like, I mean, this was the days of MySpace, and like we'd be in the back of the kitchen, and I mean, I'd sing along, I'd rap along, I'd be doing all these things in the kitchen, but I didn't go out and make an album and drop it to my friends. And like, the thing is, like, I don't even think I got the album from you. Like, we went sledding one day, we went over to like another person's house, and they're like, oh my God, have you heard Steven's album? And I was like, I didn't even know he had one. And I mean, but it's just that thing, you know, like I think that experience taught you a lot of you know, so it was a humbling experience to do that. But like, you went out and did it. Like, that's the thing. You're like, I'm gonna make an album, and you did. And
a song called "See You on TV." We're practically TV.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And you know, I had and you know, there's a lesson in there. I literally, I had been working my kind of first real engineering job at Union Pacific. Do you guys know Union Pacific?
Oh yeah,
in Omaha. So I was working there for like, it had to have been like almost a year while I was in school. And same thing. I was like starting to make some of the songs, and I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to take this serious, I got to go all the way. So I sent my resignation in at UP and to get more serious and go out, record, and put all the cash I made, and boom, make that CD. And so
has it paid off?
100%. Like, man, like it's great. For me, I still will listen to Cut as a joke if someone else talks about it, making their like some song. I'm like, hey, you need any advice? I've already done it. It's so stupid, but like yeah, no, it was great. It's worth it, minimum for the story and a maximum for the experience. Like, even just learning all the software tools to make like, the words and everything aren't that great, but the quality is pretty good. And I did it for pretty cheap. And learning how to do something for cheap and good quality, learning the software, higher end software, had to get me a little more detailed about when I'm trying to do something, get more detailed about the specifics. And that definitely helped me tremendously. Like, there's a lot of engineering software in general that are very similar. And I've had to use a lot of mixed bag of tools leading to where I am today, including CAD, including, ironically, music software. In fact, I put a lot of that to use to make all the videos, like on our Facebook. You know, I didn't make them all, but I helped. with a lot of the editing because it just takes a lot of work. And because I already did that work a lot before, I knew things that some people didn't know, like, oh, you got to filter out some of this audio here. You got to do some of this stuff here so that you can get it. Even if you're doing it cheap, you can still try to make it higher quality cheap,
In season 3 and most of season 2, Dale was our pretty much edit everything, do the podcast, do the video, do the website. I mean, Dale did it all. And like me and Drew just like, fine, I'll just record, and one of those things that now, our thing of season 4 was, Josh, do this, Drew, do this, Dale does this, and kind of split up the load so we can all make it easier to do. And, we've got our podcasts. So, we're only 5 episodes in, but, the episodes are coming out on a more timely manner. We've got better content. We've got video footage. We were at the Detroit Auto Show just a couple weeks ago, and we were filming B-roll footage of the cars out there. Might I add, while you're in China, GAC has some pretty awesome like concept cars. I don't know if
it was my
you could ever see
favorite
them
favorite car of the show.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of the company, but I know it's GAC. It's a Chinese auto manufacturer.
Guangzhou.
Yeah.
Okay.
Auto company.
But it's fantastic. They've got some pretty future. They're like the Tesla of China.
Okay.
So
there's some pretty good Chinese cars here. I would say 50, not 50, but a good 20% of the cars here are cars you've never seen. They're basically like electric Kias,
well,
like
what
almost. But
about the GAC was that they're the second largest auto manufacturer in the world.
Jesus.
And that's because most of them are, just based on the population of China.
Yeah. And before me and Josh went to the auto show this year, me and him never seen it before.
Yeah,
and I work in the automotive industry.
So Dale works for Ford. Yeah,
and Josh did a bunch of research about cars when he got his Tesla. So I would have assumed that somebody would have heard it, being it's the second biggest. But it's just so crazy how there's things that are that big that you don't hear of. But we only got about a half hour, so let's we do want to get into the rest of the rest of the show and kind of get your take on these things here.
Okay.
So, but we appreciate you taking the time with us. And
no problem.
So, we were talking, Dale. We'll skip your news here and could do that after this. But we were talking about the renewable energy that or the solar energy earlier, and this kind of popped up. Dale put it on here. So T-Mobile had stated that they will get 100% of their production, towers, buildings, and relays.
Everything that T-Mobile does, any network, retail stores, everything they do, they're trying to get to 100% total renewable energy, solar, wind, from renewable sources by 2021. And so that was the CEO who said that, kind of made a statement, made a video, Twitter, everything. So good for them. However, they claimed, and this is something that Josh works for a subsidiary of T-Mobile, or AT&T. I'm sorry, AT&T. So he knows, if this is true or not. But I was, most of our conversation so far, I've been looking up online, and I couldn't find a single information about any projects that they've done for renewable energy for AT&T or Verizon. They're saying only 1% is renewable energy by either of them.
And I had seen real quick. Sorry, Josh.
No,
I had seen somewhere that kind of the similar statistic of the 1%. I don't remember where I had seen the team, like if it was based on the T-Mobile news. So like I said, it's also not verified by me because I'm not a person that would be in the know for that statistic. But I feel like I saw something like Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint all had less than, maybe it was a Sprint ad or something like that. But there's a lot of people are hitting that renewable energy as a source for positive feedback or positive business growth. And I don't know where I saw that, but that looks very familiar at that 1% renewable energy.
So one of the things that I admire a lot about T-Mobile, their CEO is, I mean, he's a Richard Branson type. He's not as eccentric, but the dude doesn't fuck around. Like he's on Twitter calling out the CEO of AT&T, calling out the CEO of Verizon, being like, how could you guys do this stuff? Like, you guys suck. Like, T-Mobile rules. Like, I mean, just like as far as a CEO, like he is very vocal about his competition. And while there might be some truth to this article, one of the things that makes T-Mobile such a good cellular provider is because they're so small, there's such a huge room for growth that they have. So he can be this aggressive. You know, they started the monthly installment plans on your phone. You know, who cares about getting a phone under contract? If you just want to own your phone, T-Mobile's going to help you do that cheaper and make cheaper rate plans. They started, you know, giving certain streaming rights away for free so long as you're using T-Mobile phones. They're able to do these things and roll them out company-wide because there are less buildings, because there's less towers, because there's less everything to them. Where I know T-Mobile reports on their market share growth every year, and you know, the CEO on Twitter said, you know, 2.5 million gross ads for new lines as compared to Verizon's 700K and AT&T's like 1.2K. And he's like, oh, we'll see, like T-Mobile's obviously doing better. But I think what is missed here is market share. Verizon and AT&T have such a larger market share than T-Mobile, that yes, if T-Mobile keeps growing the way they're growing, they're going to surpass Sprint very easily. But to surpass Verizon and AT&T as far as market share is concerned, like, of course, if people leave Verizon, people leave AT&T, T-Mobile's probably the next logical choice to go to. So they're going to see all this growth. So I could see them saying, you know, 100% of their power will be generated by renewable energy based off how many towers they have, how many buildings they have, how many relays they have, because it's a smaller network. And then maybe AT&T might be doing 1% of their numbers compared to what,
so 100% of, just in small numbers, 100% of 10 towers, you know, is, you know, you have 10 towers, but 1% of, you know, 1,000 towers is, you know,
just made your math a lot harder there for you.
So market shares by carrier, I just looked up because I was interested, which is something you said, Josh, I didn't actually think about. Verizon is a little bit bigger as far as AT&T. So Verizon's 35.6% of the market, 33.2 is AT&T, and 16.9 as far as T-Mobile. And other ones are 12.7 by Sprint, and then US Cellular, and then
so T-Mobile has passed Sprint then, huh?
Yep, and actually they've been past Sprint now for all of 2016, 14.
Is this a Google Analytic you're looking at, or
no? This is a statics. I give you the link.
The statics.
I will put the link down in the description for everybody to look at.
Perfect. So I guess where I was going with that is, you know, 1% of, you know, the 1,000 is still 100% of, you know, 10.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
So that would be the same amount as what T-Mobile will be doing.
Yes. So they could be 100%, but their 100% is a lot smaller than somebody else's 100%. So,
yeah. And I think that's maybe where they're getting the numbers from.
But yeah, so just kind of wanted to touch on that because that was in the same kind of sentence as what you were saying there, is solar energy and stuff. Real quick here, a little pup of sexy news here. Dale, little pup of sexy news. Tell us about the
new edition.
Yeah. So the other day, me and Amanda went to, Amanda's my wife, Steve. We went to the Humane Society and bought a new puppy. We are not really a dog family. I've had dogs my whole life. My wife hasn't had them. So we actually just recently got a brand new dog on Friday, which I'm super excited about. Amanda's actually out right now with the dog. But it's a German Shepherd and a Lab mix. And I'm super excited about him. His name's Dusty. And he's pretty cute. And that's pretty much it.
I like his little socks.
Yeah, nobody would thought I would have gotten a dog. It's not.
I didn't. I was very surprised. That's why I was like,
Dale literally, like, he'll come to Nebraska and visit me, and then he's like, "Can you get your dog? Like, he's bothering me." Like, I would be glad if I never saw another four-legged dog ever again. Is like the attitude he gives, and then he goes out and gets a kid. Now granted, this Dale and Amanda have kind of had the same attitude about having kids, and
did it make you excited?
I'm just like, hey man, like, I mean, I love Dale and Amanda so much.
He wants them to procreate, and if this is a step toward procreation, then
not necessarily that, but
it's exactly what
I've always used Dale and Amanda's relationship as like the Corey and Topanga of like my real life, and it's interesting to see this kind of
new step.
Yeah, like, and I'm like, oh my god, they got a puppy, like, yay, like.
So
I'm just really excited.
I do have to ask, who's watching Puppy?
So right now, Amanda, actually, she might be home now. She's trying to be quiet for this, but her and the dog actually went to one of her coworkers' houses to go get a few supplies, like a gate that he can kind of play around in, so we don't have to watch him as much. Like when you clean the house or do something else, he doesn't have to stay in a pen. He can stay in this, like, it's still a pen, but it's like a bigger pen, like a room-size pen. And so we got that, and then a few other things. But she took him on a car ride, something to do while I did this.
Do that a lot, because dogs who don't get car rides in their first year become terrified of them after.
Oh no, he loves it already.
Yeah, that's good.
He's looking out the window like, where are we?
I'm so new. Everything's so new.
Yeah.
But moving on into our nerdy news here. So we officially got our booth. Everything worked out for Planet Comic-Con. So SexyNerdScience will be down in Planet Comic-Con from February 16th to February 18th.
We'll be there the 15th.
We'll be there the 15th.
If anybody wants to do anything on the 15th after we're done setting up, feel free to shoot us a message and see if we can get together.
It's my goal to eat barbecue every day while we're down there. So I'm excited for Planet Comic-Con. This has been one of my favorite conventions ever. I started going to Planet Comic-Con for my
4 years ago.
First con, yeah.
5 years ago? It would have been 5 because we started in 15. So.
And I love going to Planet. I'm really excited.
Was it 2015 that you went to Planet Comic-Con? Or was it 14 that you went for the first time?
I
think it was 15 because it was right before O Comic-Con.
Yeah, I think it was 2015. And then
only 3 years? 4 years?
Yeah,
4 years.
4 years.
Because this will be his fourth time going.
But I'm super excited for Planet. And Abby Darkstar and Keith are going to be there, and they're probably my favorite cosplayers. They're from California, but they're always so much fun to talk to, and I'm really excited to get to hang out with them for the weekend.
Yeah,
well as other fun creators.
Yeah, I didn't know Baroness Von T is going to be there again as a cosplay guest. So she'll be there. Oh My Sophie will be there. And then so our booth number, we do not have a site map yet, but our booth number is 3805. I'm assuming that's going to be closer to the end. I think there was 45. They had a 4,500 row, so we might be mid arena.
But we did pay extra for a corner.
We did get a corner booth, so very excited for that.
We'll put a map on our social media as soon as we get that available.
Yeah, we just don't have a site map yet, so we'll get that for you. But come check us out. I'll have a great setup for you, and be very excited to have everybody, hang out.
And because Steven's on this podcast still, I was curious, have you ever thought about possibly demoing your company, these drones with this software and stuff at a comic book convention or something like that? I know you were in California. I don't know how many conventions you might have gone to down there, but it's right up your market, especially with the lightsaber training.
I agree. I think so too. I think That's definitely something interesting now that you mention it. But maybe more like end of this year kind of esque, simply because I really want to get these basic apps proven to be marketable, and then get them interested in making something a drone a little bit more something that I would want to put our name on,
Sure.
the actual thing, before I kind of take it around.
Definitely think a drone with an AR experience, I think, would probably
Yeah.
be a really good one, especially for things like the lightsaber combat and stuff.
Yeah.
You can actually see the beam traveling towards you and how to deflect it and stuff. And then
Yeah.
I know, unfortunately, they did already make the Star Wars AR experience, but
Yeah.
something very similar to that.
Is it VR
You could even do
or AR?
Well, so it's augmented reality when you're still able, you're technically seeing an opaque picture of what's around you, and then you're
So I've only
using
saw the
that
VR version
for
where they put it's the whole thing. You don't see what's actually outside of your VR headset.
the one they had at Best Buy was a Star Wars AR experience.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Did you try it?
I didn't get to try it. No, a lot of my friends were like, "Josh, you should just buy it," and that probably
You
should have
should've
been
just
one of
bought
the buys that I just randomly bought.
If you try it, let me know privately, because I am curious to see what that is, what that's like.
A lot of, to be fair, a lot of the we sell the Oculus Samsung experience at AT&T, and a lot of the AR on there is actually pretty cool. There's not a whole lot of software for it yet, but the only thing that you have to get used to is your goggles. And this is something they bring up in Ready Player One, which is one of my favorite books. Again, Audible plug, everyone, SexyNerdScience.com/Audible. Check out Ready Player One. But the idea was, when you're wearing a headset and you're augmenting reality, because the image is technically a couple inches in front of your eyes, you're a couple inches away from actually seeing everything you see. So when you're wearing the Samsung augmented reality headset, if you try to touch something, you're gonna fall short of it by the same what this is an inch and a half away from my eyes. I'm going to be an inch and a half short of whatever I'm trying to grab, and your brain just can't compensate. But what they did in Ready Player One is they actually projected the image on the retina with the glasses. And that instead gave you not only a
one-to-one,
it gave you one-to-one distance wise, but it also was able to fully immerse you in an environment, because the image that they're giving, there's no blind spots when you're projecting directly onto the retina.
Do you think something that would be possible?
Having Steven on this podcast, I think we're telling the right people the right ideas for what to do here. So
yeah. I think before that, baby steps again. I think Google Glass had the right idea. I think the having some kind of glasses somehow, which then the distance is shorter. You just get shorter and shorter till it's contacts. I think that's probably the most likely.
That's actually a really smart contact deal, because they have those light up eyelashes. That's a very thin wire that you basically glue to your head with makeup.
And I don't know if we reported it on here in Nerdy News or Sciencey News, but they do also have a Bionic lens contact that you can use, that they can adjust different focal lengths on it to essentially
make you superhuman.
Will give you better than 20/20 vision at a whim, and it's wirelessly connected. So you could have binoculars on your eyes without actually having binoculars.
That's super crazy.
This already exists? What is
Those
this?
do exist. That was something that I found a sciencey topic for. I don't know if we ever talked about it on the podcast, but it was an idea that I think is still like, I mean, in develop. They're not like out for purchase.
Oh,
but
they're not out for purchase. Okay.
developed.
If it was off of Indiegogo, I wouldn't hold your breath.
I have a Kickstarter case that I purchased like 2 years ago, and I'm still like kicking myself for it because
Don't kick yourself, man. It's so hard to make something.
I'm sure.
It's so hard.
with-
And no matter how much money you raise on Kickstarter, it's not enough.
of course.
It's not enough.
And that's exactly what I knew going into it. I was just like, they're asking for something super cheap for me, and even with all these backers, I don't think they're gonna like. The phone case I did was the Android on the back, iOS. Like you put your iPhone in the case, and it's Android on one side, iOS on the other. And
Ooh.
when you take pictures and stuff, you can take pictures. You could take a selfie with your actual rear-facing camera on the Android OS, and it was a pretty crazy thing. What, I didn't see what you were showing me there.
Jason David Frank.
Oh yeah,
I'm so excited for him.
so yes,
There's so many technical problems with that I wouldn't even know where to start. But it's possible if they're really passionate. It's possible they might still send you something. A lot of people get
them is getting the OLEDs because when Apple switched from LCD to OLED, the cost for an OLED display skyrocketed because Apple had such a huge demand for it, and they were originally going to buy them from Samsung, and because Apple purchased OLEDs from Samsung, then Samsung's like, Apple's got first priority. Sorry. But now Apple's transitioning to LG for their screens.
So I just looked this up, the telescopic lenses, and I'll put a link in the description as well. But it looks like it's a lens that sits on your eye, and it has two lenses on it. So the first lens is like a normal, if you need to see something, like prescription or whatever, and then you actually have to turn it, and that turning actually then
you have to turn it yourself.
You have to turn it yourself.
Ugh.
There's no like.
There couldn't be electric. Yeah. I don't know what's more ew.
It's got to be weighted on two sides to where it stays on.
No, because your eyelid would hold it in.
Dale, have you worn contacts before?
I have not.
The
I'm reading what this says.
Okay.
So
it says the eyelids hold it in.
No, it doesn't say that.
Exactly. So what I'm saying,
the lenses themselves are richer and larger than your bog standard lens.
I am using contacts at this very moment. They are weighted on the lower side to keep the lower side where it's at, and if it moves, it auto corrects itself because it's weighted on.
Why does it need to correct itself? Isn't it like if you were to rotate it, would it not be?
Because it's a shaped magnifying glass to correct your vision. It's not completely. It's thinner in one area than it is in others because that's the shape it has to be to make your eye see. So
okay.
So if you have a contact and it's weighted, or if you have a contact and typically they're weighted at the bottom to where that bottom, it'll autocorrect itself if you rub your eye and it screws if it rotates it. So I'm assuming it's going to have two weights on it or two separate. I don't know. I mean, you said it's two lenses, so maybe.
Well, I think the top lens wouldn't be floating on the mucous membrane of your eye like a contact lens does.
So maybe it's like
maybe
clicks
it
on
could be rigid and still. I was thinking, the best way to do it would be with instead of like a mechanical piece, if you had a transition crystal in it, just similar to like how your transition lenses are, that could adjust the focal length of light. Then you could just shine like an incident light on it, and then it would manipulate the crystalline structure of the lens, and then that way.
This says that you can blink and wink, so they can go between the two.
That's pretty cool.
But it doesn't explain how or what they do.
Interesting. We'll post more about that on our Facebook page probably, because I think that's something that more people want to know about. But let's move on to our sciencey news, because speaking of Josh buying things that he shouldn't buy,
Josh bought me a flamethrower.
I bought the podcast a flamethrower.
Josh bought me a flamethrower. Wasn't it so nice of him?
And actually, as of right now, it's technically the Boring Company, not a flamethrower, because they can't ship flamethrowers overseas.
Is that the newest deal?
Yeah, so they had to change the name to not a flamethrower, so then they can ship it overseas.
So I'm assuming that obviously you have to get propane of some sort to.
I believe it comes with its own. I believe it's
because you can't ship that solution.
Maybe not put together.
Yeah,
so
it's like just
separately.
ship it separately.
But yeah,
or it comes with a tank that's empty and you just fill it up wherever you get.
Yeah,
I
propane
just
from.
don't think it's going to
Probably
be propane though. Like,
Well, I mean,
Why would it
what?
not be?
gas.
It's what?
Is that propane though?
For what?
MAP gas. Like
MAP gas?
Yeah, MAPP, I think.
I don't know what MAP gas is.
It's in the blue things for soldering.
Argon?
Is it argon? That
But it's for for soldering. I thought you meant for welding. Soldering. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
MAP gas is trademark name belonging to Linden Group, previously known as chemical. Blah, blah, blah. MAP gas is widely also generic name for UN. What is methyl acetylene? Propane.
It's a mixture of propane and propadiene.
Cool.
Safer, easier substitute to acetylene. Okay.
Cool.
So yeah,
That's what I thought. Yeah, it's basically propane. That's the wrong kind.
I don't see why it wouldn't be propane. It's easy to get, cheap.
Propane accessories.
I don't think propane works as a very good torch. Like the pressure that you'd have to put it under.
I'm sure that's what the gun's for.
5 feet.
I mean, yeah, that's what like you have when you have a soldering torch for doing
Acetylene torch.
a acetylene torch for when you're doing copper pipes.
But even then, like I can't
Well,
shoot a flame. Like you're. So the problem is you have to compress the gas to be able to get it to shoot out. And if you compress the gas too much and put it under too much pressure, then it will stay liquid as you're shooting it and catching it on fire. And you can't project the liquid out of the
Maybe it's like a
nozzle.
squirt gun.
That's how flamethrowers work traditionally. This is technically a torch. It's not a flamethrower because it's burning the gas.
Whichever.
out the nozzle. I'm just saying, as maybe Stephen might like this too, as a person of science, there is a clear distinction between a flamethrower and a torch, specifically how they're lighting things on fire.
I'm not familiar with the vocabulary. I've taken torch out of my vocabulary ever since my roommate in university kept calling every flashlight a torch. So
Gosh.
I don't have torch in my vocabulary anymore. Too confusing.
British or?
It is British people. All British people do it as well. Yeah.
So yeah, we're getting not a flamethrower.
Getting a not a flamethrower.
So
more videos to come.
Yeah. Drew standing on Josh's jumping stilts with a flamethrower may happen in the near future.
I'd be so terrified if you fell.
I would have you stand next to me so I could hand you the gun. Here, Josh, I'm falling. So next up here on the lines of Elon Musk, as always, Tesla is looking to have 50,000 solar roof systems and power walls installed by 2022, which is, I think, a fair number. I mean, I would get one by 2022. I hope to have my own house, and I would definitely look into getting that. We'll have to talk more about the logistics of that, whether or not, just like we have to, maybe have to go buy the shingles and, at Tesla or at some other store and bring them to Nebraska because, Nebraska.
Well, that statistic is only in the United States too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're going to sell power walls and solar roofs outside the United States yet.
I'm just letting you know.
fair enough. Well, I mean, it's still pretty. I think it's a pretty good number.
So one of the things that I really
I'm sure it's
have
conservative.
one of the things I've really been kind of actually since reading the last book by Bill Nye, the Unbelievable, I think is what it was. It was either Unbelievable or Undeniable, one of the two of the books that he has. The fact that Bill Nye's house is so efficient, and like that's one of his claims to fame, is that he, his California house runs on virtually no power. It heats the water with solar heaters. I mean, it uses solar panels for electricity in the house. I mean, he does a really good job of doing that, to the point where I'm kind of now considering just saving up enough money to be able to get a loan to build my own house, where I can put systems like that in place before I even move into a house, because it's a lot easier to build a house that's energy efficient right now than it is to convert an existing house into an energy efficient home.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. Like, I would like to build a house by 2022. That's not far off. I'll have 2 kids by. Sorry, I'll have 2 kids by then. But anyway, so yeah, is there Dale? What's this little figure you're putting up here?
I'm trying to figure out how much the United States uses in a year, and I don't even know how to say. No, I don't know how to say 3.
Isn't that 3 trillion?
3,911,000,000 megawatts. I don't know how to what's above megawatts? Gigawatts? What's above gigawatts? Terawatts? I don't know.
I would assume so. Yeah, I don't know how many watts that is.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could convert it, but
I'm sure I can't do it, but I was doing it real quickly and I didn't.
Yeah. So it's 3.9 billion megawatts.
Yep.
It's probably the best way to convert that over.
Yeah.
And these Tesla solar roofs and power walls will do about 650 megawatt hours. So almost there.
Well, I mean,
Well, these are only homes too. So I mean,
how many houses are in the United States? Put one of those on every bad boy, and that's enough. I mean, I'm sure there's.
I don't think that would work.
3.9 billion houses in the United States.
What?
Your only problem is going to be getting the neighbors to not get mad. There's especially by UNO, when I was doing the research for that project, there's ordinances in the neighborhoods around that no one's allowed to have solar or wind or anything that could deem as ugly from one of the other neighbors' perspective.
Yep.
So it's which is completely subjective. So you would almost have to have new home neighborhoods where everyone agrees. So politically, it's tricky. It needs to be done, but it's going to be tricky.
With the Tesla solar roofs, it's virtually minimal as far as eyesore.
Yeah.
If you paint your house a specific color, but it's still relevant and not like an eyesore.
Well, there are, even in some of those communities, certain
HSAs
colors that you can have
HA.
your roof. You can't
HOA.
HOA. That's what
you can't do a slate color roof. You have to have
tan or red.
Yeah, but that's more for historic homes, or more for homes that have a theme going on. But that before you going into it. Here in Detroit, we have a Dearborn historic district that you cannot paint your house without getting approval by a little HOA they got going on.
Yeah. And I was to say, Elon's got, or the Tesla solar roofs have a couple different colors. So, you should be able to match closely any existing, ordinance. I think they have a tannish red. They even got the Adirondack, or not Adirondack, but the, doesn't he have those, the old timey shingle, ceramic shingles?
Yeah.
They've got even versions of that. So, it's definitely something that I would hope would fit in anywhere,
We
Additionally,
first need some legislators that actually care.
that's what I was. That's
right. That's yeah.
the logistics. Josh couldn't buy his Tesla.
I can't lease a Tesla in Nebraska
Or Michigan.
No.
the state, because Nebraska has laws prohibiting me from leasing directly from an auto manufacturer.
What? Why?
I had to
It's a dealership rule, because Michigan has the same thing. Unfortunately, Michigan probably started it.
it was a law to protect dealerships, which were the at the time the best method for the motor companies to sell their cars was to a dealership, and then the dealership takes care of maintenance and everything like that and sells the cars. However, when the Great Depression hit, the motor companies found out, hey, we can just sell the cars right off the lot directly to the customer and undercut the middleman, to not lose profits. And that became an issue for the middleman. And so then the governments had to step in and be like, okay, no, you can't do this. You have to sell through
And lobbying and all the other stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Man.
I even sent a letter in, physical paper letter, to the 4 people that represent me in the where I live, and each one of them sent me back, thank you for your concern. However, because Tesla doesn't follow the rules, or follow the state dealership laws, I'm paraphrasing obviously, then if they change their stuff, then we'll be happy to work with them. Even though I'm saying I know about these things, or I'm familiar with what we're talking about, I want you to allow them to do it besides the fact, or not even exception, just get rid of the laws, or give the exception or whatever. But no, they're already, the politicians themselves already have that they want the dealership, because they get kickbacks. So that
Tesla doesn't even show up at the North American Auto Show in Detroit for that kind of reason there.
Yep.
So whack.
Yeah. So kind of wraps up the show here. We really like to thank you for being on the show, Stephen.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Do you have any? I mean, do you have social media for your company that you have yet? Or
Sure. You can just type in on Facebook, Juke AI Gaming Drone, or Juke Gaming Drone, JUUK.
No.
Yeah. And you can like us on there if you'd like. We're not posting anything new for a while, just simply because we're doing a little more B2B stuff right now. And so shortly, when I for sure know which toy companies and which factories we're definitely going to lock up with, at that point, I'll take some prototypes from them and make more videos and then post them and show what products will be affiliated with soon.
And if you ever want to follow us on the con circuit, you could totally, I'd be more than happy to, hook you up with a ticket, and you can use our booth and stuff to do these kind of
That'd be
things.
sick. What how often do you con?
We try and do 5 a year.
Oh, dang.
And so, it's basically one every other month.
Wow.
Some we go to and set up the booth space. Some we just we're going to plan on just attending. Just depends on our finances and whether or not our time constraints are allow for us to set up a booth and everything.
Okay.
I know for sure we're going to be at 3 with booth space this year. So
okay.
Our next guaranteed booth space will be in July, which is Omaha.
Okay.
Omaha. So,
okay.
Kind of neat.
Yeah.
But the idea, the future for us, I would love to make it to San Diego. I'd love to make it to New York.
Next year we should try
C2E2 in Chicago is another really big one.
Well, I think we're trying. That's one of the ones we plan on at least attending.
Yeah,
I think.
So
we may drive up there and just take Dale's gimbal and shoot a bunch of con B-roll and get some vocal interviews, but we won't have I don't think we'll have a thing there.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely, it's all finances at this point in time, because there's nothing really stopping. We can fit all of our podcast stuff in the Tesla, and I can theoretically take the Tesla anywhere in the country and not have to pay for anything to get there. So travel's not necessarily the problem as much as it is a hotel when we get there. And
Which is why I said we should just buy an RV and tow the Tesla.
yeah,
Tow the Tesla.
That way, when we get in town,
Or if you can you Tesla tow one of those tiny RVs, and then you can all three get onto one single bed.
so my
You know, those tiny hump ones.
yeah, I've seen videos of people with their Model S's towing
one of those little
vehicles. Granted,
I know a guy that can get you a trailer hitch.
yeah, as of right now, I can fit a full-size mattress in the back, which is good enough for 2 people.
dude.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Let's do it.
Hey, full size, man. You could easily fit 3, 4.
I'll sleep in the front seat.
The
for all
problem-
that.
Because it's full size, like it spreads out just fine in the back, but where the wheel wells are on the inside of the car,
We'll just have to be touching butts.
Okay.
That's all.
that's or depending on where we turn and not be big spoon, little spoon all the way through. But I mean, it's one of those things where like our goal is to be able to go to all these larger conventions. We've actually gotten to meet and talk with a bunch of really, I think big celebrities, and they're always on the circuit at these bigger places. So it will be awesome to see Jessica Negri at San Diego.
I was gonna say I got sidetracked just a few minutes ago when we were talking about Planet Comic Con. I wanted to see if they had a site map up yet, and I saw that Jason David Frank will be there at Planet Comic Con, and I don't know if you're familiar. He's the green and white Power Ranger from Power Rangers.
Oh,
I was
nice.
like, he's gonna be there. Awesome. So I mean, we'll hopefully get to talk with him and get to talk with a lot of people, but yeah. So, but like I said, that does wrap it up. Josh has to actually go work, so
Okay.
I do want to plug our social media, so you guys can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And then you can listen to us on our website at SexyNerdScience.com, SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn, or Podcast Addict. Hopefully soon to be Spotify. Still working out that with them. And then you guys can buy T-shirts from us, especially I think we're still doing our Planet Comic Con T-shirt on Teespring for this upcoming convention. Only available at Planet Comic Con weekend. So that's teespring.com. You guys can support us on our soon-to-be released Patreon. So just look out for that. And then, of course, SexyNerdScience.com/audible for that free trial and free download of an audiobook.
All the links for Steven and his company will also be in the description and on Steven's page on our Sex Nerd Science website. So please check that out. And that's all for that.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate you being on the podcast, Stephen, and we wish you the best of luck and keep in touch, okay?
Thank you. Cool.
All right, and all you guys listening, we will see you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.